This episode may have a startling lack of raps, but you know what? I'm just going to let that slide. Let's get started. Hello, my friends. Welcome to Thumb Together TV. My name is Andrew Fantasia, and today we're going to be talking about his Dark Materials Episode 4, Armour, together. As usual, if you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up and give some love to that subscribe button as well. Guys, Lin Manuel Miranda is finally here. We had to wait 4 episodes to see him, but he's finally here, and he's playing a cool Texan aeronaut named Lee Scoresby, and he's got a little bunny who's his demon. I've been waiting for this since the show got announced. I don't know what it means to be an aeronaut. I guess you're just kind of like a pilot for hire, but instead of a plane, you have a balloon. I don't know how many people you can fit in that little balloon, so I don't know how lucrative that business could be, but it doesn't matter. He's an aeronaut, and he's cool, and he's finally here. And he's also kind of a cowboy, because that's what the character is like. He's a Texan cowboy who also happens to fly a balloon. For reference, in the movies, he was played by none other than Sam Elliott, who is pretty much the most cowboy person on planet Earth. It was also very cool this week that we saw not one, but both of the main bear characters who are going to be with us throughout this trilogy, at least for most of the trilogy. We finally met Yorick and Yaffer Raknison. One of them is good, one of them is bad. You can probably tell which is which. And I don't know who's doing the voice of Yorick Bernison. Last time when the movie came out, it was Ian McKellen, so he had that very Gandalf-y kind of voice. You know, just picture a bear saying, "You shall not pass," and that was what you had going for you. I don't know who's doing it this time, but Yaffer Raknison, the bad bear, the mean old bear who hides in a cave and has that big blade on his head, that's Peter Serafinowicz, so that's kind of cool. My only gripe with the bears is that despite the fact that one of them is being played by somebody who I recognize, the other one is not, they both sound almost identical, and I don't like that. I don't like how much they sound like each other. They sound interchangeable. They both just have deep, gravelly bear voices. If you were to just hear it without knowing who is who, I can understand where confusion would set in. But I'll let that slide for now. I'm just happy that we have Yorick Bernison and Lee Scoresby and Hester finally in the show where they belong. Yorick got his armor too. It's not as flashy as the armor in the movie was. It's more sort of subdued. I don't know, maybe their CGI budget is more subdued, but at least he got his armor, and at least he is finally on board with Lyra and the Egyptians, and they're going off to the north to face off with whatever hellish things are going to happen to them up there. Minor spoilers, they are very hellish things. Now, there was a moment here that I didn't quite understand that involved Lord Boreal and one of the guys from the Magisterium, and this guy has an alethiometer of his own, and Lord Boreal wanted to ask it something and basically threatened this dude and blackmailed him and said, "Hey, I know your secret. I know your deplorable secrets, and if you don't do what I say, I'm going to tell the world." This was something new. You know, this is not in the books. I don't know who this character is who has the alethiometer and the deplorable secret. I don't know what his secret is either. It sounds like it's sexual in nature. I don't know. Maybe he's like creepy around kids. I don't know. I don't know what the deal is with this guy. I couldn't tell you. If that's a lingering question for you, and you think I have answers because I read the books, unfortunately I don't. I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what Lord Boreal is talking about. He wants to talk to the alethiometer too. Lord Boreal's got his own arc going on in the show, which is really interesting, and I'm so glad they made him a secondary villain and gave him a lot of space to move around and have an arc. We got to learn a lot more about Farder Coram and his past with Serafina Pekkala, which is a very sad past, and it was very surreal to see the old bear from Game of Thrones break down crying thinking about his dead son. It was a beautiful, touching moment of the show. And as we're going forward, clearly we are going to meet the witches sooner rather than later. I wouldn't be surprised if we meet the witches next episode, because if I remember right, this is around the part where they show up. And the witches, guys, are really, really cool. They don't get much screen time, at least in the book. Who knows? They'll probably amp it up for the movie because they know we want to see more witch. But the witches are very, very neat characters, and I can't wait to see how they look and how their society is going to look on screen. Because the set dressing that they have done so far on the show has been great, and I want to give a shout out to, I think the town is called Trollesund, the town that they are in this episode. This little oil town just on the middle of a harbor somewhere in some cold, desolate looking place in the north. It looks like an old western set, but with this sort of gray, bleak twist to it. Nothing about this place looks warm. Western sets usually look warm. It usually looks like you're in the middle of the desert. This looks like you're cold everywhere, even indoors. And man, what a terrific job they did when you see the establishing shots of this town and you just see, wide shots of the church and all the buildings. It just looks fantastic. This is my probably favorite set that they've had so far, even better than the Magisterium sets, which all look nice, but they're probably green screened. This looked real. This looked legit. I don't know how they did this, but Trollesund was fantastic. And it came packaged with a nice little surprise, because there's a dude who's kind of, I guess, the harbor master at Trollesund who's causing trouble. He's not a nice guy. He gets up in Lee Scoresby's face. He steals Yorick Bernisson's armor. He's not a good dude. And as I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, where do I know you from, sir? You have a very familiar face. And it turns out it's Dudley Dursley. It's Harry Potter's cousin. He runs this oil town now. Man, he got skinny. He got very, very skinny. That made him almost unrecognizable. But Dudley Dursley was in the house. And once again, he played a morally decrepit fellow who got his ass handed to him by a magical creature. Typecasting at its finest. But in all seriousness, it was great to see Dudley Dursley again, even though most of the time his head was buried under Yorick Bernisson's claw. What a fun surprise it was that he popped up. That was just great. And he had some great, great scenes with Lin Manuel Miranda. And every scene Lin Manuel had was so much fun. I love seeing him interact with his rabbit. I love seeing him interact with Dudley. I love seeing him interact with Lyra and the bear. He just stole the show. I really, really hope they give him more screen time than he had in the books, because Lee Scoresby is not usually around for the rest of the trilogy, and that would be a shame to waste somebody as cool as Lin Manuel Miranda. Though I will say, the fight scene in the saloon where the rabbit is just yelling, look out, what are you doing?" while he's fighting all these cowboy guys, not my favorite. Probably one of the cheesiest moments the show has had so far. But other than that, this is everything I've ever dreamed of since I heard that Miranda got cast as the Texan aeronaut himself. And he's got his hat that he tips and he picks people's pockets, which is a pet peeve of mine in storytelling, because it's impossible. You cannot take this watch off my hand without me knowing. It is not physically possible. But regardless, he picks people's pockets and he flies a balloon. So it's everything I've ever wanted out of Lee Scoresby. And he eats bacon and beans like I do from time to time. We have the same diet. See? We could be friends. And last but certainly not least, apparently Mrs. Coulter has captured Lord Asriel and he is being held by Yoffer Ragnarsson and all the other bears. I can't remember if this is true. I honestly can't remember if she actually captures Asriel or if that's all a lie. The show is making it seem like it's true, but I don't remember that ever happening. Maybe this is new, I don't know. But I like that we saw that Mrs. Coulter is still keeping busy. She's got a lot of plates she likes to keep spinning. And once again, she keeps slapping her monkey and silencing him just as he's about to talk. I love their dynamic so much. Ruth Wilson, you're my hero. I don't know why I haven't heard of you until this show started. But that was his Dark Materials Armour. That's our episode for this week. That's our quick little recap. I'm just happy we have our Texan aeronaut and our armored bear joining in on all the fun. Next week, witches and lots of them. Anyways, I'm Andrew Fantasia. Thanks so much for tuning in, everybody. I'll see you here next time, and until then, adios.